Hey everyone, welcome to another video. So normally on this channel I make videos, as you know, where I go out into nature, do some landscape photography, but today I wanted to do something a little different and talk about my camera gear. Specifically, I want to talk about why I'm not upgrading from a Sony a7RV to a Sony a7R5. So it is a dark, rainy day here in BC. I'm in my van, super cozy, got myself a nice cup of tea. So grab yourself a beverage as well, and let's talk about camera gear, everyone's favorite topic. I've had this camera since about 2018, and I think it's still one of the best landscape photography cameras out there. So let's consider what makes a good camera for landscape photography. First, as far as megapixels go, this one has 42. I think that's more than enough. My previous camera was a Canon 6D. It was my first and only other full frame camera. It's kind of an entry-level camera that's good for landscapes, and it had 20 megapixels, I believe. And I was able to print images fairly large, maybe 24 by 36 inches, and they still looked really great. So 20 was enough for that. With 42, I'm able to get maybe a small improvement in the quality for such large prints, otherwise it's not very noticeable. But the main thing is I'm able to crop a little bit more. So if I need to crop to even half the size maybe, it can still look pretty okay. The next thing is dynamic range, and this is probably the biggest thing for landscapes. You want to be able to shoot high contrast scenes, often with the sun in the frame, and then pull up all of the shadows, pull down highlights. And this is where the a7RV really stood out to me as superior to my previous camera. This camera has awesome dynamic range, and it actually is pretty much the same as the dynamic range for the Sony a7R5. Next, we have image stabilization, and that doesn't matter that much for me since I mostly shoot on a tripod, but it does help if it's super windy or if I just don't want to set up the tripod. Maybe I'm shooting a handheld focus stack very close to the ground, then stabilization does help, and it's pretty good in this camera. Finally, I do shoot videos, though I'm leaning towards more and more switching to just shooting on the DJI Osmo Pocket 3, which is what you're on right now. Still, it is nice to have, and this camera is able to do 4K 30, which is just what I need. Finally, one of the main things is, of course, a good selection of lenses, especially zoom lenses, and I've been very happy with the selection of lenses for this camera. Now, you can't go wrong with, any of the top lines like Nikon Z or Canon RF. All of those have great selections of lenses. I've been very happy with the Sony selection, particularly the third-party lenses. So currently I have the Tamron 28-200 on, and that's a great lens. I've made a video about that lens. And I'm also a big fan of the Sigma 14-24. That is just an incredible lens, especially for night photography, and it's sharper than any of the Sony lenses, or Nikon or Canon that I've tried. It's just insanely sharp for an ultra wide all the way through the entire frame, even at the edges. So let's consider the advantages an a7R5 would offer. Number one is 61 megapixels, and that is actually my main reason for not getting that camera. 42 megapixel images are, I would say, about as much as my fully maxed out 2019 MacBook Pro can reasonably handle in Lightroom and Photoshop. So if I were to upgrade my camera, I would also have to upgrade my computer. There's just no way around that. And if we consider the cost of that, a fully maxed out MacBook Pro currently would be about $4,000. Of course, you don't necessarily have to use a MacBook Pro, but that is kind of my computer of choice, and I feel like it makes sense to get kind of the best possible thing at the time and just use it as long as you can. And so that would be $4,000 for a new computer, $4,000 for the new camera, and probably another an extra few hundred over the course of several years for extra SSDs. I use these SanDisk SSDs. I really like these. They're kind of very portable and kind of rugged. And this one is about 300 currently for a 4 terabyte drive. So between the computer, camera, drives, and taxes, you're looking at almost $10,000. That is a lot. So let's think about what else that camera offers. The second thing would be dynamic range. And like I mentioned before, it's pretty much identical. I will leave a link below to a website that compares these things. For video, it can shoot 8K 24 or 4K 60. I don't particularly need either of those. It also has better image stabilization and better autofocus. So this is where it starts to get a little bit tempting because better image stabilization is always nice. If I can shoot handheld more, spend less time setting up the tripod, that's great. And the autofocus is nice for videos. I mostly use manual focus otherwise, so yeah, those are nice to haves. Next is another nice to have, and that is, so on this camera, you can probably see the mirror. It is always exposed, so when you're changing lenses, dust can get on it. It's not too much of an issue. You can clean the sensor. It's fine, but it's just not ideal. And the a7RV provides a cover, or rather there is a cover built in that always covers the sensor, and that's nice. But the most important feature, the biggest upgrade for me, is this little screen that it has. So on this camera, all you can do with the screen is pull it out like this, and it comes out a little bit, and this is all it does. Right, so this is great if I'm, shooting somewhere down by the ground and I can tilt it up and look down and see what I'm shooting. That's awesome. But as soon as I start to shoot like this, well, it doesn't quite work. It doesn't tilt this way. So it's really not the best for shooting vertical. It also doesn't flip out. So if I'm shooting video, I can't see myself. So yeah, the screen on the a7RV does all of that, and that is perhaps the biggest upgrade for me. However, that is still to me not worth $10,000. When I think about whether to upgrade gear, there's two main factors that I'm considering. Number one is it has to make the experience of capturing images better. So either more efficient, easier, or more enjoyable. And number two is the upgrade has to provide a substantial enough improvement in quality. And I don't believe that the a7RV provides either of those for me. Now, if I already had a powerful computer, say I had the latest MacBook Pro, would I upgrade at that point? At this point, I'm not really sure. I'm leaning towards no. The a7RV costs $4,000, and I could probably sell this one for $1,000 at this point. So if I were to get rid of this one, I would be spending $3,000 on the a7RV. And I'm just not sure that it's really worth it. So what do you guys think of that? Are there any blind spots in my logic? Is there anything I missed? I would love to know. Now, the one instance where I think I would buy the a7RV would be if I was looking for a new camera and I didn't have this one already. So if I was upgrading from something like my old 6D, then yeah, I do think that the features the a7RV offers would be worth it at that point. So just some closing thoughts, I guess, on gear in general. I think that gear and getting caught up in getting the latest gear can be very time-consuming and expensive, and often unnecessary. I do think it's important to have the right tools for the job. So, with landscape photography, we spend a lot of our time and money going to these really cool locations. And for most of us, it's not all the time that we're out there. Sometimes it's capturing a once in a lifetime moment. And it is nice to have the right tools for the job for that. So I highly recommend just getting the best possible gear. If you are very serious about something, getting the best possible tools and then using those for a long, long time. For me, the a7R III still remains kind of a top of the line camera and a great tool for what I'm doing. So that's about it. Let me know what you think. Let me know, are there any blind spots in my logic? How do you approach this? Anyway, I hope this was helpful. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you on the next adventure.